After feeling not too well about the previous tutorial, both in and about it, well, in as in recording it, but hey, what's up guys, Metallicize Storm, we have another tutorial today, and I'm feeling a lot better. Today we'll be talking about Spire, and we're going to be going over the block system. And not just the block system, no. We actually have several things besides the block system, including the Calipers relic, the Blockade card, and Metallicize and plated armor. There's a lot of ands in there, but it's a little bit excessive. For this is gonna be the first time this is gonna happen, but I'm actually gonna have a segment just dedicated to explaining them, so I'll be doing that right now. Alright, for our first time for tutorials, we have the explanation section, which is basically a compilation of all the comments I've made in the tutorial, just for some extra clarification. Let's go over block first. We have 5 things to go over. Block is, well, it's a state that has a stacks factor into its productivity, efficiency, and for each stack, it'll block one single point of damage, but will reduce the number of stacks by the amount of block damage. So if you block, say, a 5 damage attack, and you have, let's say, 10 stacks of block, you'll be losing 5 stacks of block, and you'll be left with 5 as well. And without any other buffs, the block state will be removed at the end of the turn. However, there are going to be some states that will remedy this. Speaking of that, we have 15 reduction, which is not really the name of it in the actual game, but basically instead of removing the entirety of block each turn, the user will only remove 15 stacks of block, which is reminiscent of the Calipers in Spire, the Calipers relic at least. We also have no reduction, which is based on the Blockade card from Spire, used by Ironclad. Instead of losing block automatically at the end of each turn, well, nothing happens, basically. You don't lose any block. And this will also override any other reducing skills, such as the Calipers, so you don't have to worry about losing 15 block, even with the Calipers as well as the Blockade card. And we also have Metallicize, which will give us some block at the start of the turn, instead of, well, removing some, never mind. But it will, for each stack of Metallicize, we'll be getting a stack of block. That's basically it. However, plated armor is a very similar state. However, the difference is, for every time the user takes damage, they will lose 1 stack of plated armor. That's the only difference between this and Metallicize. Alright, let's go into the actual tutorial stuff. It's time for the plugins and some other stuff, but I'll get to that. Go to our plugin manager. The only plugins we'll be needing today for this tutorial is Buff and States Core and Skill Core, which is somewhere on here, right here. Basically, we're using the evaluations in, well, within the notes of many of our states and most of our skills. That's it, but they are quite essential to what we're trying to produce here, or reproduce here. In accordance to the many topics that are going to be in the tutorial, I also would like to talk about the video separation, in which we'll be talking about the block system as well as Calipers and the Blockade skill in the first half of the tutorial, and the second half will be dedicated to Metallicize and plated armor, just so we can separate the video a little bit more cleaner. I guess we'll be going with that, just so you know. So there'll be 2 demonstrations. And with that, we also want to talk about the enemy skills, because, well, we do want to go over them, because I do want to show you how much damage each does, because that will factor into how we demonstrate the tutorial. Now the basic attack skill is set to a flat 20 damage, and actually the other skills are also 20 damage each. These skills are only for the enemy to use, but I just wanted to show you that dual attack does 20 damage times 2, and triple attack does 20 damage times 3. That's it, nothing too special. This enemy that we're going to be using is Rock Feather. I'll add these skills later, but yeah. I think we can go on to some explaining. Alright, let's talk about our first state, and only state for this section. The block state, which is in and of its own a really cumbersome state. It takes a lot of explaining to do, so I'll be doing that as quickly as I can and as precisely as I can. I don't think that was the right word to use there, but okay. We'll be using the evaluation custom react effect. Or using the note tags custom react effect. And I guess I should mention that all the states have the remove condition remove battle end on them. The for 15 reduction, no reduction, it's only because they're temporary buffs and not permanent buffs, which would be permanent buffs in the actual game. But that's what I want to mention first of all. But let's go back to block, where we have custom react effect. Now this will happen every time the user with this state suffers an attack, or potentially suffers an attack. If the damage taken from this attack is less than the target state counter. So the state counter for the block state. So if the block state had like 20 stacks and the damage dealt was like 10, then you'd have 10 stacks remaining, which is what we're doing here. We'll be subtracting the value, and we'll be setting the value to 0 because it will do no damage, because the 10 damage is already blocked. The 10 damage from the attack is blocked. Otherwise, if the value is greater or equal to the number of stacks, we'll be having the value subtract by the state counter, of course, and having the target, aka the user in this case, remove the state. I mentioned this in previous tutorials, but if you didn't know, in react effects, the target is the one suffering the attack, which technically is the reverse with other evaluations, as you'll see later on, because the target is one suffering, even though the user is the one with the state. In that case, the user is, for react effects, is the attacker, which is odd, but, well, here we are. Yeah, we'll be removing that state because at that point, since the value is greater than the state counter, it should deplete it all the way. Then we have custom turn end effect. At the end of every turn, this will occur for the user. If the user is affected by state 130, aka no reduction, let me go back to it. Nothing happens. I just have this simple command here: user add state counter for state 128 to add 0, which does absolutely nothing. Again, it's user this time, not target, because it is in reverse in this situation. And actually, buff and state's core has to deal with a lot of this, in that it's mostly their node tags. Skill core's node tags are only for skills. I guess that's plain to see in the name, but yeah, we're relying a lot on buff state's core here. Nothing will happen, basically, if we had no reduction. So we won't be reducing the number of blocks or removing block altogether. Otherwise, if the user is affected by state 129, aka 15 reduction, we'll be subtracting state 128's state counters by 15. And if the user's state counters for 128, or the block state, is less than 1, so if you hit 0, we'll be setting that state counter of this state to 0. I think I have to remove it here, actually. Probably have to remove it here. I assume that we're gonna have to remove it here. Otherwise, if any of that is not valid, aka if the user does not have 15 reduction or no reduction, well, we have another giant conditional branch here, which is not really important unless you're focusing on Metallicize and plated armor later on. But this is actually more of a safe check. I'll explain why later when we get to Metallicize and plated armor. But otherwise, if you don't want to do any of this stuff, all you need here is user remove state 128, because we'll be removing block either way. And that'll be it for the turn end effect. And we also have this skill, which gives 30 block to the user after evaluation. Nothing too special. Add state within its effects. Scope the user. Have an animation. If the target does not have a state counter for state 128, aka since we have all those conditional branches set up, if the target doesn't have no, this adds the state regardless, never mind. We'll send the state counter for state 128 with 30. Otherwise, we'll be adding 30 to it. So if there's already 10, we'll be adding 30 instead of setting it to 30, because, well, 10 plus 30 is not 30, basically. And that'll be it for this section. And we're going on to another section. I just realized that we actually talked about 15 reduction and no reduction in the previous segment, so we'll be going a little bit over their skills instead. But basically, yeah, everything I talked about in the previous section applies with 15 reduction and no reduction. Nothing really has to happen in their note boxes. It all occurs within this block note box. So, I got you covered. We're going back to our skills here, and basically all we have is reduction plan and blockade signal, which adds each respective state to the user. Yeah, there's not really much of a point of the section. I could have added it with the other section, but I forgot. Oh well. Okay, I think we can go to the demonstration now after this super short section. Alright, here we are in the demonstration. And, well, I made it so the enemy only has attack now. I mentioned dual attack and triple attack earlier. They technically did not need to exist. They were basically a test for me to demonstrate to myself that it does indeed work if you have a multi-hit attack. Or at least block calculates correctly if you have a multi-hit attack. I might show that off later if I want to. I'll probably add a demonstration segment right after this one, just so I can show it off a little bit, you know? But for right now, this enemy only has attack, which does 20 damage, and I'm controlling the amount of attacks it can do using MP. So anyways, we're gonna take this first attack here, which does 20 damage, which is quite a bit, and I'm gonna do this for sinking. Anyways, we'll be going to reduction plan. Well, actually no, we gotta go with block force first, which gives us 30 block. Now this should block a 20 hit attack, and if you blinked and missed it, our state counter actually reduced to 10 there, which is because 30 minus 20 is 10. I'll be doing it one more time just so you can see it in action. And there it is. Now, here's the thing. We have reduction plan, which does not remove our block at the end of the turn. As you can tell, well, it reduces block by 15 at the end of the turn instead of removing it. As you've probably seen in the few turns prior, the block state did get removed. So we'll be using reduction plan first. We'll be suffering a 20 hit attack here though. We'll be using block force. Now this should remove our okay, it actually removed it by 15, and surprisingly he missed, which is not something that happens in Spire, but it actually worked to our advantage because now I can technically show you that the Calipers skill did work. By Caliper skill, I mean 15 reduction worked. Yeah. We need it one more time. Suffer an attack. As you can tell there, I actually don't have to show dual attack and triple attack there anymore because that actually worked to my favor. I had 15 stacks of block. Since I suffered a 20 damage attack, that means I still suffered a 5 damage attack while those 15 stacks were removed. So, in case you were doubting that it didn't work, there you go. It shouldn't be attacking too much. Never mind, I did not give it the right attack. Oh well. We're using blockade signal, which will mean we will not be able to lose block at the end of the turn. Which the state isn't there because, well, I didn't set an icon for them because they would intrude some of the other states. But regardless, we'll be using block force, and well, even if we suffer this 20 damage attack, you can see that our state counter did not decrease at all, despite the fact that we still have reduction plan on. In the tutorial, I did show off, well, the reduction plan does not have a turn duration. Blockade signal just overrides reduction plan using the conditional branches. So I'll be using block force again to get another 30, and we can do this as many times as we want. So yeah, demonstration 1 complete. We'll be going on to Metallicize and Blockade now. I mean, not Blockade, sorry. Metallicize and Plated Armor now. Alright, it is time to talk about Metallicize and Plated Armor. As I stated earlier, Metallicize and Plated Armor will respectively... Well, yeah, actually, you can have both at the same time, but they'll basically give a set number of stacks of block at the start of each turn. Which, as you can see with Metallicize and Plated Armor, they do indeed do that. I guess we can go over our skills first because that's probably the least complicated. But actually that would be messing up the formula, so I shouldn't be doing that. Let's go to Metallicize first. And if you don't remember, for each stack, the user gains a stack of block at the start of each turn. Yeah, I said that already, but I might as well say it again. We're gonna have this custom turn start effect note tag here. If the user is not affected with the state's block, we'll be adding the state for block. This actually doesn't really need to happen. And later I will be explaining something else as to why this is here, as well as what happened over here in the block state. But if the user does not have the state, if the user does not have a state counter for state 128, this is basically the same thing as the skill we had for block force. Basically, we want to switch everything here to user because, well, we're actually dealing with the user in these note tags, and we want to actually, instead of adding like a set number to the state counter for state 128, aka block, we actually want to add the state counter for state 131, which is Metallicize. So if there are 5 Metallicize states, or sorry, stacks of Metallicize, then we'll be adding 5 to the user before every turn, or at the start of every turn. And same thing applies here. If the user does not have a state counter, then we'll be setting a state counter, otherwise we'll be adding to the state counter. Same thing as before. Should probably show the right side here because that is kind of important, like ending off every single, or certain scripts with a semicolon. So we do want to show that a little bit. Same thing with plated armor actually, except we change it so it deals with state 132 instead, which, as you can see right here, is state 132 because it's plated armor. However, a few differences lie here in that, well, if the value of the damage taken is greater than 0, aka if you take at least 1 damage or something, and this is an HP effect, so if it's an MP effect, well, actually now that I realize it, you should probably change all of them so it's HP effect and not MP effect, because Satisfy doesn't have MP. If you want to keep it so it can work for MP too, it can probably work, but for this situation I just said this HP effect for, I don't know. But if you want to set it to HP effect or whatever, go right ahead. It's totally up to you. We'll be adding to the target state counter, or we'll be adding to the target, which is this user technically. We'll be adding to the state counter of 132 of -1, aka subtracting 1 every time this user takes damage, because that is what plated armor does instead of Metallicize. If you don't remember, for each attack that deals damage to the user, the number of the state stacks decrease. And, well, same deal as before, if this state counter is less than 1, for 132 at least, aka plated armor, not block in this situation, and then it will be, if it is less than 1, we'll be removing the state. Because, well, a 0 counter Metallicize is not going to do much for you. I can guarantee that. But yeah, that's the only difference between this and Metallicize, but let me go over what happened in block over here. So at the end here, if you don't have null reduction or 15 reduction, we'll have this different conditional branch here. Basically, if you have the state 131 or 132, instead of removing the state, what should be keeping it but setting it to 0. Now, you may be wondering why this is. It's because, well, I had some problems occur where the state wouldn't show up, and it caused so many problems that numbers did not add correctly. And also, I think it's because removing the state and then adding it immediately in the same set time well, it caused many problems, basically. So we do not want to remove the states if we have Metallicize or plated armor, which is what happened here. And it's also why I added this add state formula here, but I don't think it's really needed here. Alright, let's go into the second demonstration. Gotta sync it up a bit, and we are back with another demonstration. This time for Metallicize and plated armor. Now we'll be adding Metallicize, and again, Metallicize grants block to the user equal to the number of stacks at the start of each turn. Well, let's use Metallic Flux to get Metallicize. Now, as you can see, we already have 5 stacks of block just from Metallicize. Again, with the use of Buff and State Score and through our block states note box. And actually, it'll keep staying 5 because it is consistently removing all block because we do not have null reduction or 15 reduction, and also adding 5 at the end of it. This is also this is also where the problem of... Never mind. I explained the problem earlier, but it functions properly now. If we actually use a reduction plan, the same thing actually occurs because we actually don't have 15 block. Actually, something did go wrong. That's unfortunate. I did change that actually. Basically, you want the same thing to happen with 15 reduction as the 15 reduction section of the block state as the block state had with the if 15 reduction and no reduction were not present. Basically, you want to keep the state there instead of removing it entirely, and you want to have the same conditional branch. Now that I see it up close, yeah, now we can show off the problem, I guess. We're using Blockade signal. Now we'll be having 10 because again, problems did occur. But we'll be adding 5 every single time because Metallicize is still there. I probably have to demonstrate plated armor now, unfortunately, which means I'm gonna have to go make another demonstration. Oops. Alright, 10 audio files in and we're ready to go. The only thing I changed is that the enemy now has an attack again. We'll be using plates of iron, which is basically the same as metallic flux, except they give different things. Again, metallicize and plated armor. However, in plated armor's case, if the user suffers damage, they will reduce the number of stacks that plated armor has by 1. So we'll be using plates of iron, to get 5 stacks, and we'll be taking an attack which reduces our count to by 1, which we had 5 before, and now we have 4. However, it does seem to give us 4 block. I'll be using Blockade signal just so I can show this off. Which I don't have to. I don't have to really do anything. If I just keep taking hits, you can see that the damage still reduces with block, but I am reducing the amount of block I get at the start of each turn. So now I only get 3 per turn because I only have 3 stacks of plated armor. And if I keep doing this, I will eventually run out. Very consistently, might add. But if you had a double hit skill, and you were dealt 2 attacks, actually, pretty sure it would reduce plated armor for each attack, so it would reduce by 2 each time if you didn't block either of the attacks. But yeah, this will keep going until we actually remove it. But we can just put Blockade signal, and you can gradually see the rise of the number of stacks within block, as per usual. Which we'll be getting 4 here. Well, actually, I'm just gonna get block force on. Hold on. So we have 34, minus 20 is 14. And we'll be getting 4 there because we did block an attack. So there you go. I don't really know what I was explaining in this tutorial. It kind of derailed, but that's actually not really something I wanted to say, but you know, it kind of worked out. Lots of demonstration in this one, so we're going to the outro now. Alright, see you there. Alright, I'm recording this before demonstrations as per usual, and now that I realize it, well, thank you guys so much for watching, of course, but, well, I realized that I think there were definitely some problems in my previous tutorial. Oh no, sorry, not that tutorial. I think I made definitely several mistakes in some of my tutorials in times past, but I don't remember them off the top of my head. There are definitely tutorials where I do not want to view them ever again. So, yeah, that's basically what I want to say about that. There are definitely tutorials that I do not feel proud of, and I will never go back to them because I am definitely not proud of them. Yeah. But yeah, this tutorial is a lot of fun actually. It was a lot longer than the previous one. I just had so much fun with it, and it actually worked out a lot better than I was expecting. I actually prepared this as the first tutorial of the month, but so many things went wrong, so I just deleted the entire thing. I mentioned this in the previous tutorial, but it didn't work out too well. Yeah, it turned out to be a lot easier than I thought. Yeah, this tutorial was definitely a lot easier than I thought. I just repeated the same thing I just said, but yeah, a lot better. Alright, that'll be it for today. Next week, I have no idea what will be in store, but I do have an idea, except we'll have a few ideas, but they're extremely complicated and they're gonna probably take like 30 minutes. That's probably a far off range. I don't think that's within the right range of time, but anyways, that's it. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching, and with that, I say, see you guys, and stay safe.